Yo, welcome to another episode of the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. I'm your host and the man behind the mic, K Sap. Today, man, we got one of those shows for you. But when you come across the video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you got your post notifications on so you know every time Simply Ball drop another hot banger. And if you're new to the channel, and you're just now coming across the platform, please hit that subscribe button. Please post your comment, please share it out, and give this video a thumbs up. On this channel, we cover sports, hot topics, roundtable talking, and marriage chronicles. I see everybody in the comments section, hashtag salute. And you know what my mantra is. Tell a friend to tell a friend. It might not be for you, but it might be for them. Well, guys, man, it's getting to this point. It's getting to a point, man. Skip Bayless is getting to a point. It's getting to a point. Man, when is Skip gonna learn not to get into it with his co-host in a disrespectful way, man? It's a way that you can address your co-host, and it's a way that you can keep things casual. But when you cross the lines and you do disrespectful things the way Skip Bayless did in the past, that gets guys that work with him want to leave the show and go to the producers and be like, hey, this is not going to work. Now, you know the history of Skip Bayless. The history on Skip Bayless is he gets into it with either a guest or a co-host. Now, the backstory on this is you remember when Richard Sherman was a guest on First Take, and they was talking about a particular topic, and Richard Sherman and Skip Bayless got into a heated verbal altercation on national television, where Richard Sherman was like, "I'm way better than you in life," and Skip went on to try to disrespect him. He did the same thing. He got into a heated debate with Jalen Rose when Jalen Rose was on First Take, trying to be disrespectful to Jalen Rose. And Jalen Rose respectfully put Skip Bayless in his place. He did the same thing with Chris Carter. Chris Carter respectfully put Skip Bayless in his place. Sometimes Skip Bayless gets out of line and people go back at him. It might be off script, but this is exactly how these guys feel when Skip tries to disrespect them. They're not going to tolerate it. So now you know, going back to when him and Shannon Sharp was on FS1 and Undisputed, the relationship started off fine. The numbers was, gloomy. People was viewing in, and basically they said Shannon Sharp was really carrying the show because once he left the show, that indicated that, Shannon Sharp was the main go-to guy on that show, and the numbers reflected that. And when Shannon Sharp left, the numbers declined. When he went over to ESPN with Stephen A. Smith, the numbers rose. So that tells you that Shannon Sharp was the bell cow over there. So now Undisputed and FS1 brought in their new dream team with Keyshawn Johnson, Richard Sherman, Michael Irvin, and on Fridays, Lil Wayne will be on there. So now there was a clip on It Is What It Is podcast with Mason Cameron saying that Skip Bayless is reaching. He's reaching because he's not relevant no more. The numbers show that he's declining. And now it's to a point where he brings anybody onto their show. No disrespect to Bubba Dub, Yella Beezy, and things like that. But now it's like Skip is reaching. I mean, you might as well reach out to me and let me be on the show because I can give you better content than what Yella Beezy's giving you. I can give you better, analogies and, soliloquy than what Yella Beezy does. Let me get on the show. But this is what it's come to now. Skip is being disrespectful once again. Once again. Yesterday on Undisputed, they was talking about the injury to Jordan Travis, Florida State quarterback. and the tackle and how the league wants to try to get that drop down, hip down tackle out of football. And Richard Sherman was giving his takes, and Skip Bayless was giving his takes. But along the line, when Skip was giving his takes, Richard Sherman said, how are you going to be talking about that and go into it, and you're not going to, my validation is not good, and I played the game. So how are you going to be talking about a tackle that needs to be taken out of football? But Skip Bayless literally disrespects Richard Sherman live on national television, and Richard Sherman didn't hold back. We're going to play a clip on what happened on yesterday's FS1 and Undisputed between Skip Bayless and Richard Sherman. Take a listen.
God, he survived the hip drop, and now we see Jordan Travis.
What
the problem is?
What's crazy is the Geno Smith
Let me
one was
finish,
to
Richard.
avoid a horse
I'm
collar.
speaking. I'm speaking. Thank you.
I'll let you speak, but you're not speaking from experience. So stop raising your voice, Skip.
Okay.
Talk to me, Skip.
All right. Are you going to let me speak or not?
Well, you're speaking on something you don't have no experience doing. So, I mean, what point can you really make?
I've covered the game for a lot longer than you've been alive.
You've covered the game. Yeah. I've actually played the game longer than you ever played. So, like, what we're talking about is something that actually happens in the game that you can't experience unless you play it.
Does Rich McKay know anything about football? Keyshawn, help me out.
Wow. On national television, Skip Bayless and Richard Sherman get into a heated altercation, which, if you go back and look at the tape from yesterday and look at the show in its entirety, you can see that Richard Sherman basically was checked out after that because of the fact that he basically told Skip Bayless, man, don't raise your voice at me. Basically, I'm not no kid. Don't raise your voice at me. And we've known this to be Skip's MO. We've known this to be Skip's MO. I don't know. That wasn't even in script. That was something that Richard Sherman had to politely tell Skip, hey, you're not going to raise your voice at me. Even though Skip was trying to make a point and Richard Sherman interjected, like Skip Bayless always does when guys are talking, Skip wants to try to talk over you. But Richard Sherman interjected and he stated, like, you know, that's a particular tackle that's in football. How are you going to dissect something? And I've actually played the game. And then, you know, Skip Bayless, as he always does, he always takes an underline shot talking about, I've covered the game longer than you've been alive. And then Richard said, I've played the game longer than you ever played the game. So from experience being on the field, making tackles, about, you know, grabbing a guy around his waist and bringing him down with all your weight, you can't avoid that. You can't avoid that because a guy is running full speed and you're coming up and you're tackling them and they're dragging you and your weight is dragging them down to the ground. So there's no way that you can avoid that type of tackle. And Richard Sherman, basically, that's what he was saying. And they got into it on national television. Once again, this is not the first time him and Richard Sherman has got into it. Like I stated earlier, this is the second time, man. This is not a good look for FS1 and Undisputed. They wasn't able to laugh this one off. Now, you know the relationship between Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless. They had to hide a lot of things behind closed doors, but once one episode happened, it happened again, and the disrespect kept on coming. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back with Shannon Sharp, and that's why Shannon Sharp is no longer there. So, Skip Bayless, man, you're toting a fine line, man. When is it gonna stop, man? When is it gonna be to a point where you can just debate and laugh things off and have some sense of humor instead of being disrespectful? And Sherman let it be known, man. Skip, don't raise your voice at me. Do not raise your voice at me. Skip, man, you got to tone it down, man. That's how you lose your co-hosts. And that's why it's hard for people to work with you. And now you're reaching to get people on your show. Like I stated earlier, you bring anybody on your show. Skip, if y'all watching this, Undisputed, y'all watching this, reach out to Simply Ball Drop and bring me on the show. But guys, y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comment section. Keep giving these videos a thumbs up. Keep sharing these videos out. Keep telling a friend to tell a friend. And that's going to wrap up another episode of the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. I'm your host and the man behind the mic, K-Sap. And we're going to catch you on the next one. Deuces.
Thanks for listening to the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share on all major platforms.
Another one.